Hey y'all, Data Guy here. And so, with the kind of explosion of AI and AI tools over the past few months, everyone and their mother now has their own LLM. And I personally, I'm in it as well. I love using AI. I don't really have the brain power to talk about the processes behind the scenes that are actually, being used to create these large language models. But what I want to do today is kind of use some of the standard use cases I use AI for and compare, how Bard and ChatGPT perform with those two use cases. So you, as a data professional, can decide, hey, this is the right tool for me to help me with my daily tasks, make me more efficient, give me more free time back in my life. Because that is really what AI is for, is, making it so humans don't have to work. We just tell the robots what to do. Um, and so what I'll do today is just kind of run both of these tools through some comparison tests, show how they perform, for the exact same use case, and just show some of the advantages and disadvantages of each tool. And so the first thing I wanted to do was really just show off, hey, let's say I'm lazy. I don't have the time to read all these articles that come across my desk, but I want to still stay appraised of world events. I want to understand the broad strokes of what has actually been discussed in those articles with just the nuggets of information that I actually need. And so I thought, hey, that's the first test we should run. So what I've done here is in ChatGPT and in Bard, I have just put a link and just said, hey, explain this to me. And so with ChatGPT, and this is a crucial note here, is you will need to have the pro version with plugins that allow you to read in web pages. And ChatGPT, so this is, I'm using browser op. And basically what this will do is allow you to give it a link, say describe this, and see in this case I actually just pasted it and I just hit enter without actually saying describe it, and it already just comes up with a summary, 7 points of exactly what happened in the article, broad strokes of hey, this is what this article discusses, and takes a 10-minute article into a 1-minute scan read. So really good job by ChatGPT. Obviously, you have to pay for it, so you can't really do apples to oranges. But when I do the same in Bard, I just say, "Hey, can you summarize this web page for me?" And it says, "I'm a language model, and I don't have the capacity to help with that." So pretty crazy, considering what I'll show you next is Bard actually does a good job of processing more recent information. So what I can do here is this obviously isn't great. So we'll say ChatGPT takes the mark in reading specific web pages. But where Bard can kind of come back on that is in our second test, which is, hey, I want some very recent information about a recent topic. So, ChatGPT, its information is only trained up until 2021. So I can send in newer websites that by default won't be included in its language model. Whereas Bard, because it's developed by Google, it has, all of the Google search engine, all that data to work off of. It has much more recent data to actually process. So if I say, hey, tell me the biggest events in the news in July 2023. This will then give me a list of the biggest news in 2023. So quick summary, hey, heat waves, deep mining rules, war in Ukraine. And you can kind of filter this, or hey, I want to know all the news in data this month, or I want to know all the news about Ukraine in the past month. Then this can help filter exactly what you want. So it's kind of like just a enhanced Google search engine almost in this sense. Whereas if I take the exact same query, so copy and paste it into ChatGPT, this will fail. So you're going to see this. So you'll see it's going to try, it's going to use my browser op to actually run a search on Google in this. But if I turn this off, so I'm going to say stop generating. So, well, you can use plugins to achieve the same thing as Bard. It's just going to basically read this from Wikipedia using browser op. So if I don't want to regenerate, but I want to create a new chat and just use GPT 3.5. So 1 second, let me stop this generating. There we go. Okay. You'll see, you'll get this kind of error message where if you ask for anything past September 21, ChatGPT just wasn't trained on that information, and it won't work. So not super useful unless you're, just want what happened on Wikipedia in that time. So there we'll go Bard wins for, recency of data collection. Now, I think one of the most common use cases is, hey, how is ChatGPT at actually designing me functional code to use? So next what we'll do is actually compare, hey, what is going to create me a more efficient data pipeline, ChatGPT or Bard? So since I work with Airflow all day and have a pretty good eye for how quality the Airflow code written is, I am going to copy the same problem statement, which is please create me an Airflow DAG that pulls weather for New York City from a public API, drops the columns region and color, stores that data in CSV as a CSV into S3 bucket, and copies that into a Snowflake staging table before appending it to the master weather dataset. So what we'll do is we'll enter this in GPT-4, and then we will also enter this in Bard in new chat. So here we go. And let's see which one wins in terms of creating us a better Airflow DAG. So I'll pause it for a second while this generates so you're not just staring at code, right? So now that we've got our code generated, let's run through it. So we can see here with ChatGPT, we got standard imports, and we got just this fetch weather data function that is actually taking the data. It is turning into a data frame. It doesn't tell me, so I have to bring in my own HTTP method, which will aligns with this. Drops the columns, and then does an S3 hook to actually upload it in S3. So it's only 3 tasks where it's Python fetch weather data, clean it, upload it to S3. Then this task is taken from S3 to Snowflake, and then it is appending it into my master weather table. So while this will likely get the job done, this is terrible Airflow code, and that's mainly because ChatGPT, again, is only working on pre-2021 information. So a lot of the things that would make this easier in Airflow 2 weren't around yet. And generally, you don't want to have a task that's doing 3 separate things all smashed together in one Python function, especially when those tasks have their own dedicated operators. So let's go over to Bard and see how they did. And Bard absolutely smoked ChatGPT. So we can see here that it just definitely wrote better code. There's kind of no getting around that. So you can see we're creating an Airflow DAG, and then the tasks we're defining here are, it's again using the HTTP operator actually generated my own, an API endpoint for me to use, so I don't actually have to find that on myself. So that's really helpful. We have the drop columns task here, which is using the Python operator with a Python callable just for dropping columns. So again, a lot simpler than kind of that weird Python function that ChatGPT came up with. Then we're using the S3 copy operator to copy that into S3. Then Snowflake operator to copy that from staging. So it's assuming that I have that S3 bucket set up as a staging bucket for Snowflake. But actually, I just need to have that IAM role set up. And then finally, you have the appending to master, which is basically the same, and setting the dependencies here. So we'll say Bard is definitely taking the cake on this one. It just is way better at writing more modern code. So I'm sure for code methods that actually haven't changed so much in the past couple of years, it would be more similar results. But in general, I found Bard is a little bit better just in general writing production level code. So we'll give it to Bard there as well. For our next test, let's see which one is better at actually reading and informing you of what's happening in code. So, the ability to generate code is obviously great, but a lot of the times I'll be looking at a piece of code and I won't have any idea what to do with it. So what I'll do here is actually just, upload a Python file. This is just running Great Expectations on a pandas data frame. And I'm just going to ask it, what is this code doing? And so while it's working on that in Bard, I'm also going to upload it in Google. So let's upload a file. And actually, I don't even know if we're able to. So let's see, GX tutorial. Oh, wow. Okay, so we can't actually upload Python files within Bard. So that's a little weird. But let's move around that and we will just copy and paste the code then from Bard. So if we open up this DAG as just a text file, 1 second, I'm just going to copy and paste this here. And we'll just say, hey, give us more insights, please. So here, let's copy this in Bard. What does this code do? And so again, we'll give this a second when we go look at what the output from ChatGPT is. So you can see pretty good high level understanding of what this DAG is doing. Just running a validation suite on a pandas data frame. It'll break down all the kind of most important variables here, specific start date. And so you can see if I want to go deeper, it will really tell me every single part of the code and what that's doing. So far, ChatGPT did pretty good. And I would say this is about the same, maybe a little less human readable and more just like these are what each of these things are. But I would say pretty decent. I'll give a slight edge to ChatGPT just for the fact that I didn't have to copy and paste code. And that is obviously going to be much more valuable, as you work with larger and larger code sets. So we'll give the edge to ChatGPT on this one, but just barely. So bringing it all back around to, hey, which one is the best tool for me? And I'm going to say it's about neck and neck, but depending on your specific use case. So my end piece of advice would be that if you are trying to, use AI as more of a coding buddy, someone that's, there to help you debug things, generate quick lines of code, give you information about, hey, what is this code doing? How can I fix this? ChatGPT is really good at that. For helping you with code. I think Bard has a slight edge in actually generating code just because it has, I think, a more expansive training model. It has more recent examples. So especially for things like Python or other languages that are really fast changing and there's always new things being added. I think Bard has the edge in generating better code. I think ChatGPT is better at interpreting existing code. So if you can kind of pick and choose, am I writing or interpreting? ChatGPT or Bard. And then in terms of gathering information, I think if you just want to, gather information from a certain time period or like more recent information, just in general around the news, I think Bard is really great for that. I think where ChatGPT has the edge is, hey, if I want to read in specific files, I want to read in specific websites, I want to, take something my company built and I want to generate a new use case off of it, and kind of just be more dynamic in that sense rather than, just kind of generic summaries and questions and news generation. I think ChatGPT does have the edge just based off the fact that you have these kind of plugins that can extend it to allow it to ingest data files, that allow it to just really adapt itself for particular use cases and bring in other tools to help enhance its existing capabilities. Whereas Bard, I think, is better just as a base chatbot, but it's not as extensible to all these different use cases, just because I don't think Google has invested as much development on it. And so that is kind of my final review. ChatGPT versus Bard. So if you're using Pro ChatGPT, I'd say ChatGPT is better. If you're using both out of the box, I think Bard has the edge. So if you disagree with me, agree with me, drop it down in the comments. If you like this video, toss me a like, toss me a sub, and stick around for some more Data Guy content. So love y'all. Have a good one. Data Guy out.